Senator Lyons.
Mr Deputy President, I rise to take note of answers to questions of Minister Scullion asked by Labor today. And I've got to say I've had a look back over the series of questions that the minister's been asked in this place around cuts to the Aboriginal budget, cuts to organisations, the very serious issue in northwest Western Australia with the children and family centres that have been cut, and indeed they've been cut right across the country. And I've got to say, I think he is the Minister for Platitudes. He is the Minister for Platitudes, because that is all we've had from him. Today he started off by telling us that there was no point asking him. Well, he's the Minister and he is responsible, but that was an answer to a question. He then went on to answer other questions, telling us that his staff were buoyant, and he said that a number of times. And then further, when we asked him about the very serious concerns, the Senior Australian of the Year, Fred Chaney, one of their own, I mean, they like to, throw up Martin Ferguson and Paul Howes and others to us, but Fred Chaney, a respected senior Australian, a person with expertise in the Aboriginal community, completely disregarded and dismissed the very valid concerns that Fred Chaney has about what's happening with Aboriginal funding, and assured us we had absolutely nothing to worry about. Well, I think when senior respected Australians, very experienced in Aboriginal affairs, say there's something to worry about, which is what Fred Chaney has said, I would put my money on Fred Chaney. There is obviously something to worry about. And last week, when we pursued questions with the Minister for Platitudes about the closure of the children and family centres, particularly in Western Australia, but right across the country, his answer to that was so be it. So be it, just shutting those centres down. And we've just heard from government senators today trying to convince us that they are concerned about the well-being and the advancement of Aboriginal people in this country. Well, if they were genuinely concerned, it's time they held their own government to account. And certainly, yes, of course, we have to improve the education levels of Australia's children, and particularly vulnerable children, and a number of Aboriginal children unfortunately fall into that category. But you don't improve children's education by cutting children and family services. And interestingly, with his so be it comment about those family services, I met with the state government in Western Australia, face to face with the bureaucrats, who told me they were so concerned about the closure of those centres that they've put $1 million of West Australian money into the West Australian centres to keep them open till December. But that impost of $1 million on the West Australian budget simply can't be contained. But they are very, very serious and very concerned about the ongoing viability of these services. And I just don't know how, in anyone's imagination, you could possibly justify not continuing to fund these children and family centres. And I have to say that I think just because it's Halls Creek and Fitzroy and all of the other remote and rural places these centres are, I would think out of sight is out of mind. And I'm sick to death of the Minister for Platitudes coming in here trying to tell us, as he has, there's been no cuts to the Aboriginal budget. And I have to say that our Prime Minister, who declares himself some kind of Aboriginal advocate, well, we've been left wanting and waiting. And certainly in the budget, Mr Hockey never mentioned Aboriginal people, not once. No innovative new programs, and all we keep hearing about here is getting children to school. Well, I tell you what, improving education is much more than getting kids to school. It starts with children from birth, and the government completely disregards that because it's going to allow these children and family services to close in December, and that disgrace will be on their watch, and Aboriginal families won't forget that. Thank you, Mr Deputy President.